Hey there, and we're back. I hope you are all doing well, and that you are surviving in whatever this new adventure is taking us on. I do miss seeing you all for these videos. I think you all know my crazy faces at this point, so I will avoid those in the future, but we'll go through this content to make sure that you have it. So today, really the goal is just to make sure that you guys are aware of all of the changes and just some important date reminders. I'm going to do a review of the influence model, and then we're going to talk some about social motivation for this week's content. So on to important changes and dates, all of that fun stuff. At this point moving forward, everything will be delivered online. So in terms of computer access, if this is an issue for you personally, there are ways for you to access the labs at the college in order to finish your coursework. Those came out in a communication from CWI earlier this week. If you are having any difficulty, please contact me directly, and so that we can get that resolved. In terms of just me and contacting and touching base with you, I am going to schedule some online office hours. These will be through Collaborate, which means that I get to see you and you get to see me if you have webcams. I'm scheduling these just during our class time from 5:30 until 6:30. As always, I am available outside of that, and so please don't hesitate to contact me via email or send me a text or give me a call. We really want to make sure that you're successful and get through this course. That said, I do want you guys to be aware that they have extended the withdrawal date to April 17th. If you're in a class that this particular course modality is not going to work for you, or something has happened, please know that that is still an option. I do encourage you before you make any decisions about this class to reach out to me personally. I do want to make sure that we're able to get you through this class, and moving on towards your educational goals. So please contact me. Major due dates in this class. Really, I've modified that, and there are two major due dates. May 3rd, all Unit 3 activities and the Unit 3 quiz are due. May 16th, your influence project presentation, your influence project paper, and your final exam are all due. As I had mentioned earlier, I'm trying to make sure that this course is set up in a way that you can really go through it at your pace, and depending on your life, you can move ahead, or if you get behind, that's okay, as long as you're able to make those deadlines. The weekly folders have all been updated. They are structurally the same, but I am adding lecture content such as this, and some additional resources that we would have been doing in class. There are no additional group activities, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you approach those. I really wanted you all to have some flexibility given where we are with everything. With that, there are less overall activities, those commitment to learning activities. So I am going to increase the value of those overall, so that Unit 3 doesn't all of a sudden not matter as much as Units 2 and Unit 1. I want to value the work that you guys are doing during this unit equally to the previous units. So wanted to let you know about that. With the signature assignment, I did give you a slight modification, in that if you guys want to continue with your individual influence project that you started at the beginning of the semester, please do. If you prefer, given everything that's going on, to look at the concept of influence and what we're doing and learning about in the class and with this book, with an analysis of coronavirus and how to stop the spread, I think it'll be an interesting project and certainly very relevant. More than enough information to be able to see all of those sources of influence at play in something that's very much so active right now. So please feel free to do that. Both of those templates are available in a content area on the left navigation panel for your signature assignment, your influence projects. Please feel free to access that. The other change is that obviously we won't be doing in-class presentations for your projects. Again, some of you may be happy about that. I would love to have you guys record your presentations, but I am not sure if that is going to be too much for you or if you hate it. So please email me with your thoughts on how you would like to do that final presentation, and I will put together some materials about that. So those are all of kind of the nuts and bolts. The biggest thing, please contact me, and so we can get through the last part of this class together. To review, because it's been a while since we were together, hopefully this model looks familiar to you. So when we're talking about the influence model, our first step is always to create that SMART goal. And then from there, you need to determine the 2 to 3 vital behaviors. And we do that by looking for crucial moments, studying positive deviance, and observing from that outsider perspective. Remember that the behaviors must be observable, repeatable, and have a common meaning. Some things sound good, but they're not really behaviors, so we want to make sure that we know what those are. The vital behaviors are those crucial moments, or excuse me, those really kind of critical behaviors, the ones that make the biggest difference. Lots of behaviors make change, but there are ones that make the biggest impact, and so those are our vital behaviors. The crucial moment is truly that moment in time when there is a potential to slide one direction or another. And if that vital behavior is put into action, the chances of your success is on par. When we're looking at positive deviance, again, this is the research. This is what we know from looking at people who have made that change in the past, who have been successful. Those are what we're studying to figure out in terms of determining those vital behaviors. Once we have our vital behaviors determined, that's when we need to start applying the sources of influence. So again, this should look familiar to you. We've got our personal, social, and structural motivation and ability, sources 1 through 6. You must have 4, if not more, in order for any type of influence project to be successful. Additionally, you always need to hit source 1, personal motivation, in order for things to work. There is overlap between sources 3 and 4 that have to do with social motivation and ability. We'll be talking more about that throughout this week and next, but I just want to make sure that you guys are aware, especially as you're reading those portions of the book, that there is overlap. So if it feels like things are kind of repeated in those areas, yes, they will sound very familiar on both sides. So just to review, source 1 is help them love what they hate, right? This personal motivation. Source 2 is help them do what they can't, that personal ability. Social motivation and social ability are provide encouragement and assistance. Structural motivation is change their economy, and structural ability is change their space. So, digging in a little bit more, when we talk about personal motivation, the big key here is that we're connecting with values, right? And we're going to be doing this by allowing for choice, creating direct experiences, telling meaningful stories, and making it a game. With personal ability, this is all about building skills. Because we're looking at behaviors, we can teach those through deliberate practice. Deliberate practice has 4 different steps. One is that we need to have full attention in brief intervals. We know that for a lot of reasons, some of which is because of all of the stuff that you've learned about your brain. Um, we need to provide immediate feedback. We need to break mastery into little goals, kind of mini goals, and we need to prepare for step backs. So those are the 4 components when we're talking about deliberate practice. The other skill that we need to continue to build are those emotional skills. We know things are not going to go the way we want, and having that emotional ability to handle that is a critical piece in anything that we do. Social motivation is about connecting with social power. So this is about leading the way, identifying opinion leaders, and changing shared norms. Social ability is about social capital. So we're looking at the interdependence of things. We're figuring out who has the authority and gaining consent and cooperation in order to push things forward. Within structural motivation, we're looking at rewards and punishments. So how can this behavior be rewarded? How does misbehavior be punished? This particular source is the one that we're going to use least. It's important, but it has kind of some negative connotations that can make the overall influence process less successful. Source 6, when we're talking about structural ability, is addressing the physical environment. So we're changing what we see around us by making certain things more visible, by changing the data that we see on a day-to-day basis, our spaces around us, and we're looking at ways to make things easier, right? We want the solution to be so easy, we're going to do it all of the time. So moving on, I apologize. This is a longer lecture than my normal ones, and this would be a good time for you to take a break if you need it. We're going to look at the influence model example in terms of this class and what's been happening in this class, and maybe give you some clarity and some motivation moving forward. So the step 1, right, my SMART goal is that my students will be able to successfully meet their academic goals by passing their courses and finishing their programs within the next 2 years. So that's my SMART goal for you. And then step 2 would be determining those vital behaviors. And I can do this by studying positive deviance, right? I can look at all of the research out there in terms of what successful students do. And those 2 behaviors that really are critical is that students complete assignments on time and they ask for help. And over again, we can look at different models and different research, and those 2 behaviors come to the top every single time. Complete assignments on time and ask for help. So at this point, I can look at this influence model and figure out if I can apply those strategies within the sources to those behaviors in order to help you be more successful students. So starting with personal motivation, that idea of connecting with values, if I look at the vital behavior of complete assignments on time, the most important piece is really to address, why is this important, right? And I can do this in terms of allowing for choice. Part of that, in terms of my course design, is that I try to create a lot of flexibility in the activities and the projects that you complete. We create direct experiences by connecting concepts to the next task and telling meaningful stories about why general education is important is an activity that you guys will be completing shortly. In terms of asking for help, we're creating direct experiences by working with your classmates, right? And hopefully, in terms of asking for help, we've done and made it successful and kind of enjoyable enough in this class that it can be considered a game. When we're looking at personal ability, it's all about building skills, right? So within that vital behavior that really is the critical one in this particular area is completing assignments on time. And this is where there's a lot of different research, there's a lot of different pieces that fall into that. But really the goal here is, for me, is to address skills that might inhibit your success, right? So we started off at the beginning of the semester talking about time management. We've talked about study skills, about test taking skills, about note taking skills, about reading skills, how the brain works. All of these things, whether or not you felt like they were too basic, hopefully you got a little bit of something out of it. But know that they're really designed and are very intentional about the idea of making sure that you have the personal ability to complete your assignments on time, right? Students don't complete their assignments on time because maybe they don't have the basic skills to do that. Their life, it's hard to manage, and so other priorities come into play. Or maybe they're afraid of it, right? They're afraid of their success. They're afraid to commit to things. All of those things fall into hopefully a lot of the conversations we've had over the first portion of this class and will continue to have through the end. When we talk about the influence model, in terms of my example of making you the best students ever, we can talk about social motivation and social ability. So within social motivation, we're connecting with social power, completing assignments on time. The focus here is really about changing the relationships around you, in terms of making sure that um, you have additional types of support systems. A lot of times you guys have amazing, amazing friends, amazing families. Sometimes those individuals, as much and as supportive as they are in terms of you getting your degree, are not always in terms of this, don't always have the same level of support in the day-to-day types of things. So being able to have relationships with other students in the class gives you an opportunity to have some more support, right? Connecting with that support system and modifying that. And the group activities in this class, the insistence that I've had on you guys talking to each other and working in teams is really meant to support that. Additionally, we've done different activities to understand student services and the different tools and resources that they have to support you. In terms of the vital behavior for asking for help, here it's really about changing shared norms. Sometimes it's hard to ask for help, making sure that you guys know that this should be the norm, that you should be falling into is a difficult task. So the first thing is that sometimes it's easier to ask your peers than your teachers. So again, that connection with your colleagues has been important. The other piece, understanding that value of diversity, which is something that we've focused on in Unit 1. With social ability, completing assignments on time, the focus here is for you to really understand your college resources, the library, tutoring, advising, All of these different resources are available to you to increase that ability for you to complete those assignments on time. In terms of asking for help, the focus here is really this idea of cooperation, right? So we're going to build team collaboration skills, which is part of the assignments for this week. Within the influencer model example, we get to the end. We can talk about structural motivation and ability. Rewards and punishments is really what we're talking about within structural motivation. Our vital behavior here, completing assignments on time. Clearly, grades are rewards and punishments, right? This is kind of built into our educational model, and we'll talk more about that when we get to structural motivation. Activities that we've done to talk a little bit more about that is Angela Duckworth in Grit, Carol Dweck when we talked about growth mindset, Amy Cuddy, the fake it until you become it. All of those ideas and themes really get to this idea of grades and personal, finding that motivation and looking forward to kind of digging in and making things of more value to you personally. In terms of structural ability, changing the space, we've talked a lot about time management and how to navigate online resources. Those really come to the idea of addressing both of those vital behaviors, really, of completing assignments on time and asking for help. So the idea here and kind of why I wanted to go through this model bit by bit in this example was really twofold. One, to provide you an opportunity to see and kind of remind yourself of all of the things that we've been doing in this class. And also know that there has been an intent to the design and structure, and that I really have tried in the design of this course to model the same work that you're doing in your own influence projects, or as you're looking at how the influence model works in different areas of your life. So with that, I did want to end with just a deep dive into social motivation. This is really all about providing encouragement. And again, sources 3 and 4 do overlap. They're just ultimately about peer pressure. And you all know the value of that, the importance of that. It is an incredibly powerful part of our lives. Social learning, the theories in terms of when we look at educational impact, the theories around social learning are our strongest theories, right? From a baby, you learn to model and mirror your parents. This is social motivation, social ability, these concepts of peer pressure. And so they're incredibly powerful on a really deep level. And so we don't ever want to forget how important those pieces are. The key ideas here when we're talking about social motivation and providing encouragement really comes in 3 different areas. And they really overlap with some of the things that we see around leadership, right? So the first thing that you want to do is make sure you lead the way. You do this through demonstrating sacrifices of time, money, ego, or previous priorities, right? So being a leader takes sacrifice of something, right? And we follow those people who are willing to do that. We need to engage in both formal and opinion leaders. So we know what a formal leader is, right? So in a family or in a classroom setup, right? In a classroom situation, your formal leader, right, would be the teacher. Then you have the opinion leaders, right? Who's the classmate that people look to? One of the examples when I think about opinion leaders is that typically when you think about the different jobs you've had, right, you might have a boss and then you have the person that everybody goes to, right? Um, so when you go and you learn something, you're starting a new job, you get the managers telling you what you need to do, and then you get, you know, and then there's that other person, right? That person that everybody turns to. Now, sometimes the formal and the opinion leader are the same person, but if they're not, you need to recognize that and you need to really garner the support of that opinion leader in order to really make sure that you're able to address those vital behaviors. The next thing is change shared norms. Um, and part of this is really the idea of being open and honest, being acknowledging what the norms are in order to change them, right? And I think, and I'll speak to, the current coronavirus, a shared norm of handshaking, right? That's a pretty shared norm, right? How many conversations have you seen about people and shaking hands? This idea of changing that shared norm to whatever that the elbow bump situation is, right? So that's a changing a shared norm. And so having those discussions, holding people accountable, having those conversations, and bringing to light a new behavior. Um, those are the critical things in terms of social motivation that I really wanted you to get. Hopefully this video is helpful to you in terms of kind of seeing the overall things. The nice part about this is you can rewind it if I talk too fast. Let me know if you have questions or concerns. I'm always available, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.